This is a talk called From Maker to Manufacturer. Spark as a company has a whole lot of different types of clients, not only makers, but we consider ourselves as having gone through this journey of maker to manufacturer. We think that there are a lot of companies in the IoT that are going to start small and get big, and so we're big proponents of sharing what we learn and talking about the reality today of going from a maker to manufacturer. So that's me. I am the VP of Marketing at Spark. I am also an employee number 1. So I've been at the company since the end of September 2012, when there were 3 of us. And we started out a little bit differently than we ended up what we're doing now. And to give you guys a little background of what we actually do now, I'm going to show a video, which really says everything that we're up to. All right. I don't know if this is the electron or the core, so we'll see.
This is the internet. Well, maybe not the internet you're used to. This little guy connects to the internet over Wi-Fi, and when he does, he brings along whatever he's connected to. Power outlets, buttons, cameras, remote control cars, and when the internet spills over into the real world, exciting things happen, like toys that learn, or lights that know when you're home, or Wi-Fi PB&J. With the simplicity of an Arduino and the power of an ARM chip, this is the Spark Core. I'm Zach from the Spark team, and we're in China. We came here to join Kickstarter, the premier incubator for hardware startups. Kickstarter is based in Shenzhen, the electronics capital of the world, and a great place to build something new. We've spent the last year creating Wi-Fi connected products. A lot of people are building connected things, but we all struggle with the same problem. Adding Wi-Fi to a product is either very difficult, very expensive, or both.
So we built the Spark Core. This little board solves all of the problems with making Wi-Fi connected products. The setup is seamless and everything is secure. It runs the Arduino code you're used to, and you can program it wirelessly. This means it's a lot easier to add Wi-Fi now, so we hope you'll build it into your own projects, and maybe even find it in some products off the shelf.
Gosh, it's crowded in here. With the help of our friends at Accelerator, we've already started making cool projects with the Spark Core. Here are a few of our favorites.
First, there's a robot you can control with your phone. Nice driving, Kenny. Or this awesome pizza orderer. Just flip the switch to arm the button and press it to irreversibly order a hot, delicious pie right to your door. It's gonna take 45 minutes. And finally, an LCD fridge magnet that displays your favorite Twitter feed. The possibilities are basically infinite.
To the States, but the real journey begins here. Back our campaign to get your own Spark Core and come along for the ride. And then the only question is, what will you build first?
So I'm going to skip over this one for now. So we made that video and launched our Kickstarter campaign in May 2013. Since then, a lot has happened. We've shipped more than 35,000 boards. We have, I don't know, 15,000 are we up to pre-orders for our new Wi-Fi board, the Photon. We have people in more than 75 countries. I actually think it's 82. And so we've really grown up, but I wanted to show you that core video to give you an idea of where we were in our journey in 2013. And so where we were was at the beginning, make it work. These are the different stages that I'm going to run through that makers go through when they're going from being a maker to a manufacturer. The big thing to notice here is that sell it is not last. That has really changed recently, largely thanks to crowdfunding. Now it's very early on, and we're going to talk about one of the reasons for that a little bit later on. So first up, make it work. So this is a quick video of our first prototype ever, which was built by our CEO, Zach Sapala, in 2012. Can you see it's using
Hey
an
guys,
Arduino?
showing you what I was up to today. We got a little LED light here, connected to the Arduino. We got something up on the computer screen,
And we were called
and
Switch
something on the phone.
at that time.
Oh, that's my dog. So, fancy. If we go up here and click on this little button right there, oh, light turns on. Oh, and light turns off. And on. And off. So that's pretty cool. But really, it's just connected to the computer. The cool part is that we got it hooked up to the internet as well. So if I click this little button on my phone, we're turning a light on and off. Pretty cool.
So that's where we started, is just making something that actually works. Some sort of prototype that really defines your concept. You'll notice that it is ugly, it is not pretty, it is not showing actually what things do, because that's the next step. Make it pretty. And how do you do that? So that looks pretty nice, right? That's a beautiful sort of thing. This was our first ever product. It was called the Spark Socket. We did not end up making it, but it is something that you screw into a light socket, a lamp, and it allows you to add any sort of light bulb, and or it would. We did not make it, but you can add Wi-Fi to any sort of light. So this looks beautiful. It is a computer rendered drawing done by a product designer. In reality, this is how we actually created visions of this. It had nothing to do with reality. It was all about really using SLA 3D printing technique, spray paint. That is literally gray spray paint on a 3D printed material, and super nice lighting. You know, we use this as we were able to sell off of this right from the beginning, which is really important. You want to know, you want to have confidence in your company that your technology is going to work, and you want to be able to show people what it's going to look like. Maybe those two things don't happen at exactly the same time, and that is okay. Why is that okay? Because at this point in your company, you don't really want to go for the $12,000 one. You want to go with the $500 one. And can you really tell that one is not the other? I couldn't at the beginning. When I first met Zach and made these with him, it was really hilarious to kind of see how they turned out. Again, even as we've continued to grow up, this is really nice lighting. This is like the 0.1 watt of the core or something like that. It is a hand soldered mess. If you look really closely at it, it is nice lighting. It helps you sell your product, which at this point is going to be our next step. So we've made it pretty, and now we're going to sell it. I'm going to talk a little bit more here because this is really my area. And so before we talk about anything, because we're going to talk about crowdfunding, I think it's really important as you do connected devices to ask yourself whether crowdfunding is the answer for you. It is really easy, and I'm going to try and sell you on crowdfunding, to go that direction. Not every product should be crowdfunded. If you are selling a $500 luxury item to people over 65, perhaps Kickstarter is not going to be the best route for you. If you're selling a medical device that is going to be purchased by insurance companies, again, not the right route for you, and that's okay, and it's important to realize that. Okay, so let's pretend I didn't say that though and just talk about crowdfunding. So why is crowdfunding important? Because it gives us the opportunity to actually sell it before we get down the road for other things. We test it against an audience that knows what they're getting into. They're ready to develop things. They're ready to take, most of them, they're ready for an early product. We have had an incredible audience who is very patient with us when we first shipped the core. Someone was here who met Joe and I at the Science Museum the night that the core first worked. And we were about to have thousands of them land in someone's home. It did not work until the night before that. And it was a slow growth as we developed. It was amazing because the people who had backed us on crowdfunding knew what they were getting into. It wasn't a straight consumer experience. It also really gives you an idea of what your product is actually worth and if you should keep going. You know, funded gives you a sign that, yeah, people want your product. You should keep going on this. This is a good idea. There's a market for it. You priced it correctly. On our first campaign, that beautiful light socket I was showing you earlier, we realized that we did not price this correctly. We did not necessarily know our product, and we did not have the audience for it. Basically, the best thing that ever happened was we chose a super high goal here. We knew our manufacturing costs, and we knew that we needed $250,000 to make this. And we didn't have the audience. If we had just done it and ended up finding out this and learning that, you know, our price point was wrong, people weren't ready for it, this wasn't the right solution, we would have been out a whole lot of money for manufacturing. And so having that option to sell it beforehand was phenomenal and something I would highly recommend if you're not sure about your audience. So the next time we went on crowdfunding, it went significantly better, and we're currently on Kickstarter again right now, which I will talk about later. So you can see here, though, we had a really different goal, $10,000. Why did we do that versus $250,000? Because at the end of the day, this is not something that needs to be manufactured. This is a development board. Guys, if you want to hold some up, it can be hand soldered. It can be done completely by individual people. We actually just shipped out some alpha photons, and they were completely hand assembled by our team. So we knew that worst comes to worst, we make $15,000 and we have to ship these, we could do it. And so, why am I talking about this when we have a campaign going right now? We're in a little bit different place of a company than we were here. When we were at the core, there were 4 of us. We did all of our own press work. We did everything ourselves. We have a PR team right now for the Electron, and so I'm not necessarily doing that as much. But I did want to touch on 2 things that we really used for this campaign, and that we did ourselves without necessarily having the experience to do it. And it's the 2 things that people ask me most about in this process of maker to manufacturer, which are press and social media. So we got wonderful, wonderful press. And I'm actually going to show you the full secret of how we did it. It takes time. This was not luck. We did not shoot out a press release to thousands of people and hope someone would pick it up. We did an immense amount of research on what publications our backers would read, who at those publications we wanted to target, and what might they write about. And then we actually, for certain people, came up with personal notes to each person to reference something they had written about, something they were interested in, etc. And then we used Google Mail Merge, which is a super old plugin, but it's great. And we sent out personalized emails to several hundred journalists. We ended up in Engadget, TechCrunch, EE Times, a whole ton of stuff. And so it takes time, it takes work, and that's the #1 thing I would get out, or like to tell you about Sell It. So the other thing that people ask me about in this Sell It stage is social media. This is where we are. I took this last night. This is our social media feed. You can see we're almost at 9,000 followers, which is really exciting and awesome. We started this at 0, and that's really important to remember. I think there is a feeling that you should go from 0 to 9,000 immediately. It's okay if you don't. It takes time, and it takes a lot of concentration to do this. Decide if this is worth it for your campaign when you're selling stuff. Again, is it worth it when you are a $500 luxury item for 65-year-olds to spend a lot of your time on Facebook and Twitter? Probably not. And so that is what I would consider or tell you to think about. The other thing is, you don't just want to tweet or share anything like about your company. People don't follow random companies just to hear them promote themselves. At least I don't. That's why I don't follow just a feed of advertisements. I want to see articles that I'm interested in. I want to see projects, all that sort of stuff. And so you have to keep that in mind as you get started tweeting, posting on Facebook, LinkedIn, anything like that. There are very few companies in the world that can get away with only posting about themselves. Apple probably can. Everyone else, we're not Apple, we're not Microsoft, and that's okay. You have to keep that in mind. So hopefully those are just a few quick tips on selling it, but let's keep going. So the next step in this is making friends. And why do you need to make friends? Because this stuff is hard. This is really hard to manufacture, to be totally honest. We made friends by going to Kickstarter. I am not in this photo. I am at that moment sitting in downtown Cocoa, running the US side of things. I see some of you who saw me doing that and on Skype pretty much 24 hours a day. Kickstarter is based in Shenzhen, and that is how we learned everything about supply chain. We run our entire supply chain ourselves. We do not farm it out. That doesn't mean we don't have friends who we learn things from. And again, so Will is our head of supply chain. And there is no easy button, but there are friends. So these things have been handled before. If you're going into production, you are not the first company to ever make something with plastic. You are not the first company to ever source components overseas. You are not the first company to design for manufacturing. There are people who have expertise and who are willing to share, some of them for free, some of them not for free. You can kind of make those decisions. Some great examples are PCH International, Seed, which is based in China, Dragon Innovation, Hacks, which is our accelerator. This is from a new blog that we just launched called Proto to Prod, which is a free example of how to, our first post was about creating and optimizing a bill of materials. So people have done this before. Spend the time making friends. Don't reinvent the wheel. Okay. So now we're at the point of making this manufacturable. What does that mean? It means design for manufacturing. So you have friends, you're getting ready to go, but is your design ready? What does that mean? It means that you need to reduce your cost, reduce your lead time, and increase yield. For everything that you make, you want it to be optimized for price, you want it to be optimized when it's going to go through quality testing, all of that. Let's just look at a quick example of what I mean. So when you're prototyping, you prototype with tools and components that are available. So dual pass-through headers is just one example of a component that we've used. And you can see that they are pretty expensive for a small electronics thing that costs $39 to have one component like that. But that's fine. When we're prototyping 20, that doesn't matter. When we're making 30,000, it really does. And so we start looking around and we start concentrating on DFM. We found it for 48 cents. So clearly that was worth the time, worth the effort, and allows us to do this. So how do we get there and how do we figure out that we need to do this? It's all about continuous iteration. So that's how you get there. That's how you do DFM. Is you test, you keep going. We did 24 versions of the core before we shipped. Full spin-ups of the core, full testing, everything. We constantly iterated, and a lot of that was due to trying to do design for manufacturing. Here's a little example. So that's the one we used on Kickstarter, and then we just kept going, kept spinning stuff up. This is a little fuzzy, but this is version 22. And we were able to do that largely because we were in China. Okay, so we've made it manufacturable, and now we're ready to actually make it. I'm going to skip over the make it part until the end because it's got a long, amazing video about our manufacturing process. It basically goes through, when we manufactured in China, we had no idea what to expect. We sent a 22-year-old from our team over to oversee the factory. He did incredibly well and was kind of amazing. It is a scary thing. The number one thing to do is be there in person when you manufacture, and to pay attention to that step beforehand, making it manufacturable. That's almost more important than the manufacturing step, because again, there are people who know how to manufacture. So the last step in here is shipping it. This is a step that is very close to my heart because I used to, when there were not very many of us, also run logistics. This is a step that often gets pushed until the very end, as it should, but not really considered, and it's a pain, a huge pain. There are a ton of trade-offs here. It's something that you want to go into thinking about what you want out of it. Do you want, like we made the decision for Kickstarter, our first campaign, that we wanted to ship super cheaply, and we were okay if we had lost packages and we had to replace them, because that was our trade-off. For our current Kickstarter campaign, shipping is pretty expensive because we are using DHL. Prepaid VAT, it's going to be beautiful and very transparent. Why did we make this change? Because this is your customer's first interaction with the product, even before they turn it on. And so it is something to think about. So, well, this is very important, and may not necessarily be the last thing you think about. It is the last thing you pay for. Why is that important? So the reason for these steps and the reason for this, the whole order of this entire thing, is because you're approaching this as a maker, as a startup. And having this order allows you to start with things with very little, or at least littler, investment of capital. So make it work. You can do with an Arduino. Actually, no, you should do it with a Spark core. Yeah, sorry everyone. You know, that takes not that much money. As we showed on Make It Pretty, you can fake a lot of stuff and you can make it look great. As you go down the path, you're going to have to put more and more money in, and so you want to have completed all the steps beforehand in order to get there. I think that's the number one thing that we've learned. It also means that you don't have to raise money until you get down here. That's going to give you a lot more control. It's going to give you a lot more flexibility. You're going to keep your equity a lot longer. Even if you don't crowdfund here, you're going to have to start getting paying customers or investors to pay for all of this. So the longer you can push that off, the better. So I think I kind of ran through that so that we have a couple minutes for questions, if there are any of those steps that we want to go over. That's me again. And for questions, everyone should check out our current Kickstarter, the Spark Electron. This was this morning. It's live. We've got 13 days left. So yeah.
Go back to your email slide, please.
Go ahead.
You mentioned a video you were going to show at the end, too?
Yeah. Sorry, not too far. So, one thing that I didn't mention on this email, I think one of the reasons that we had, is this what you're talking about?
No, it was the one just before you were on.
Your contact information.
Oh, my email. I'm so sorry. Okay, the one thing that I'm going to add, though, about press is that a product launch is not a story. I work with a lot of the startups that make products on top of Spark. I am a very weird first hire for a technical team to have marketing and sales backgrounds. And so I get a ton of questions, and the number one thing is about the press, as I said. I think most people's inkling is to just say, like, we're launching a product. End. That is not the story. Graham, would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Graham is a wonderful writer and has covered us a number of times, but just a product launch, unless, again, you are Apple or Microsoft, is not a story. You have to give someone a reason to cover you. You know, we went out a lot with, we're in the trend of Internet of Things. This is a completely new idea that allows such and such to happen. You know, with the Electron, again, we did a very similar thing with our PR team. So even though that was not the question, I answered it.
Tell your Nest story.
Oh, okay. So one thing that we did was when Nest was sold for $3.2 billion, we kind of got in gear really quickly and made a Nest in 24 hours, which was pretty fun and pretty crazy. I almost brought it today. I should have.
I know, I had the same thought.
Yeah.
Like, had it in my head.
And basically, we just wanted to show how quickly we could prototype something that, even though it wasn't a finished product, it was definitely, I mean, it was really pretty, actually. We made it with, it was wooden, everything. And it showed how quickly you could prototype something. So that was something that worked. It was something that we could have gone to an investor and shown them. It was something that we could have gone to a potential client and showed them that it worked. It took us 24 hours and like $86 or something like that. Versus doing lots of secretive design on it and not knowing if it's working and putting all of that time in before we ever show it to anyone. And that's, again, why we push prototyping and iteration. Anila, did you have a question?
Yeah, my question was, so you mentioned that you did 24 versions of the core before you shipped.
We did.
At what point did you do your Kickstarter in the 24 models process? How many had you gone through before you did the Kickstarter?
Probably like 11 big ones, and then we did 24 more.
Okay.
In China, one of the reasons to be in China when you are a electronics company and you're trying to keep prices low is you can spin up a PCB in a day. Oftentimes the PCB place is downstairs. And that makes a huge difference versus sending in a file here, taking 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah.
So similar to what her question was, but when you launched your Kickstarter campaign, like on a scale of 0 to 10, how certain were you that you were going to be able to deliver something that worked in that given period of time?
That is a great question. At that moment, I was not certain. I was nervous because I, had not been in technology, and I was like, guys, is this really going to work? And we knew enough, our team knew enough about how this was going to work, that when we proved certain concepts, when we proved that we could do a very simple over-the-air firmware update, when we proved very specific protocols, we knew that in the end we were going to be able to deliver something.
So then what drove your timeline? Because you obviously set expectations for yourself in terms of what date you were going to...
We try to do everything as quickly as possible.
Yeah, just go as fast as possible.
As fast as possible. We want to get out to market. Again, the interesting thing with Internet of Things, and one thing we say to our clients is when you have the ability to update firmware, you can continue to improve something. You can continue to iterate. The firmware we originally shipped with had only if I'm right, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it only had the ability to connect to our cloud and download a new version of firmware. It could not do anything else.
That's because the firmware that was going to get, put on the chip in the factory they needed significant lead time.
Yeah.
And in that lead time, while the factory was doing that, we finished the firmware, right? So all we needed to do was guarantee that it could reach out to the cloud and get the freshest firmware.
Yeah.
And there were multiple situations like that where the clock was ticking. And it's like, all right, ship something, just the tiniest thing that can, be enough.
Minimal viable product.
Exactly. We live by MVP.
But that gets into testability too at the factory, doesn't it? In terms of what you put on that chip?
Yeah.
As far as firmware goes?
It had the ability to test the core hardware component and stuff like that, yeah.
Right, I think we have 1 minute left.
In the sell phase, you talked about crowdfunding as a great way to determine the right price point for a product, but it seems like you test exactly one price point.
We do. I think it's a great way to determine if it's the wrong one.
But there's no ways you've come across to say if it was $100 more, $100 less, $50 more.
No, I mean I think that's interacting with people and kind of user studies.
Okay.
And we looked around at we looked at manufacturing costs, what it would be like in retail, and cost of similar platforms. For the core and the Photon, we just drive it as low as possible, and I also used to do all our distribution, and it makes retail super fun.
Okay.
Yes.
Where did you find pizza in China?
Exactly. I believe it was terrible pizza.
They found a pizza box.
Or the box, rather, yeah.
The boy is actually the CEO of a smart sex toy company. That he was doing really well.
And now he has internet connected devices.
Yeah.
Stephanie?
Can I keep talking?
Go.
Yeah.
Keep going.
It's okay with me. You're continuing to use crowdfunding for future projects. That seems like now you're in a place where you can make a choice between that and funding it yourself. So why did you choose to go with crowdfunding?
Yeah, that's a great question and one we've gotten a lot. So we did launch one board not in crowdfunding on our own site, which was great. Specifically for cellular. We're taking a different approach to cellular in that we are working with a large telco to create a global network for data, and we're offering that data at different prices than have been seen before, with different abilities to control how much you're spending, all that sort of stuff. But we also realized, yeah, we have telco partners, but now we actually are going to go with a different telco than we started the campaign with, because everyone contacted us. Kickstarter was a way to show a very large and very kind of set in their way industry that there was demand for this, that people were excited and interested.
Are you using Kickstarter as a way to maybe avoid having to go after venture capital the way that folks maybe did 5 or 10 years ago?
Yes and no. We have a Series A. We closed a Series A this summer, and we have really phenomenal investors. We were lucky in that we were able to kind of choose investors who would add more to us than just money. And so yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, for us, this is about shipping a product, to be honest, and then the Series A and the VC allows us to grow our team. Yeah.
So, being a tech person, excuse me, I don't know anything about marketing, but once I have an idea and I start to get something and I can make it, what can somebody like me do on my own to get the word out there? It seems harder than actually making something.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard. Let's quote that. So again, I think it's about the story. It's about, and you come up with that story, you come up with the reasons of why people care, and there might be different reasons, by actually talking to people, by actually showing your product to people and figuring out, even if it's just a prototype, what gets them excited. We came up with a lot of our stories and our concepts by showing people early prototypes with the core. And because of their different experiences, they had different ideas for us. And then it's about getting creative and figuring out your target market. I mean, our market is engineers and developers. They are on the internet. We went after online publications, social media, Kickstarter. You want to look into that. If your market is, I'm on the board of something here, and they're trying to get clinicians to be interested in something. And so that's going to be more about going to schools, going into different user groups and societies. And so I think it's really important to think about, even if you're an engineer, you can definitely do this, think about who your market is and test it. And also, Google is your best friend. I don't know how to do any of this. I Googled everything.
You could also come to my group. You could come to IoT Minneapolis and meet up with people there. Find a team. Don't do it yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's what's great about the kind of the Minneapolis atmosphere is people are open. People give you advice. I think about being at Coco alone when the boys were in China for 4 months. And I got advice from all sorts of people, and they were open and they shared stuff. And so, again, use whatever you can, whether it's a user group or online, anything. Yes?
So when you first started, at the stage that you kind of have a prototype, but you're not sure if it's kind of like a prototype, should you start thinking about the team management? and should you find someone to take care of a lot of stuff?
For team management?
Yeah, at what stage that's necessary?
That's an interesting question. I think it depends on what your goals are, to get started, like what you need to do in order to do that. It depends what your personal capabilities are. Our co-founders, Zach and Zach, are incredible, very intelligent. They can write, they can design, they can do EE, they can do backend. And so we were able, two of us have MBAs, like we were able to survive for a long time without having people because we've had a certain skill set. And so I would just advise that when you're starting out, look for people with complementary skill sets to you, and that can do a number of different things. You know, you're not specializing when you're a team.
So before you actually find the funding or any source of money, how much paperwork or just like non-engineering work do you have to do?
It depends what your product is, to be honest, and it depends on you know, if your hardware, if your software based, if you have patents, all that sort of stuff. Are you marketing, or are you going to go through those first two steps, the make it work and then make it pretty? Yeah, I think my time is totally. Please back the Electra on Kickstarter.